Cozy Queers, I'm going deep into the back of my psyche today and remembering the very first cozy game that I have any recollection of playing on a PC back when I was less than 10 years old at the tail end of the 1990s. The only reason I remember that this game exists at all is that I was considering the history of cozy games and what might have been some of the earliest titles which could be considered as part of the genre, and also whether I had encountered any of those in my upbringing leading to my taste in that style of game today. Now, going by Wikipedia and other people online, Little Computer People from 1985 is considered as the first cozy game, and also as the start of the life simulation genre, which would eventually become hugely popularized by The Sims about 15 years later. Now, in between those two games, an enormous amount of evolution took place, which has been chronicled in other fantastic videos like Indigo Gaming's 30-year history of God games, which is sort of like a subcategory of life simulation games. Looking into all of this when I saw the likes of Creatures from 1990, and people on various forums considering stuff like Tamagotchi, Digimon, or the Pokemon Pikachu toys and all of their descendants as part of the same lineage, I suddenly realized that even though I did have a Pokemon Pikachu, I didn't play with that thing nearly as much as I remember taking care of this silly little 3D baby T-Rex in this old PC game called Rex, a CD-ROM my mom still claims to have, I couldn't find it, from the 90s, which can now only be found expensively on eBay, although it can be downloaded through Internet Archive. I was startled by the difficulty of finding information about this game, considering that you've got to specifically search for Rex, your interactive pet dinosaur, to find the few mentions of this game that exist online outside of other people trying to find it using keywords like 90s T-Rex raising game. There's one video of a guy playing it for an hour called Childhood Game Rex, which is where I got all my footage, because I could not get Windows 95 to run to play this. Too many layers of technology for me. That video has 1,000 views. If this video ends up with more than that one, I will have done more to inform the world of this game's existence than has ever been done before, including by whoever marketed this game to begin with. I can't figure out how I found this. Like, my mom doesn't remember how we got the game. She was like, maybe somebody gifted it to you because they knew you liked dinosaurs. Sure. Moby Games, which is like the biggest resource for learning about games history and development history, doesn't list the game at all, but they do have info about the publishers, Expert Games, which seemingly consisted of a couple from Florida who helped to get discount games into discount stores, and also had assisted Sega with adapting a bunch of their games to Windows in the late 90s and early 2000s, before seemingly they just ended business. I've also seen the game credited to Infinite Ventures, which was established the same year that the game released in 1997 according to Moby Games, and is credited mostly as a games consulting company. Now, the history around these companies online is incomplete in and of itself. It's only this one Kotaku listing of the game which even connects the groups to it at all. That's the most informative page about the game that exists, just because it lists both the developer and publisher. Suffice it to say that if you didn't play this game as a kid, there's basically no shot you've ever heard of it whatsoever before this video. And since you'd have to run Windows 95 to even play it today, there's a solid shot I am about to tell you everything you will ever know about this game from today forward. Now, what I remember Rex for more than anything is the objects that you use to play with the little baby T-Rex, including a beach ball, a radio that plays royalty-free classical music, otherwise most of the audio in the game is sound effects, and a big steak or a grape batch that you can feed to your T-Rex to make it grow larger. Although I can't remember actually making my T-Rex grow all the way big myself, which makes me wonder if I deliberately didn't grow it because I wanted it to stay a cute little baby dinosaur, or if I just couldn't figure out how to make it grow bigger, because that also sounds like something I would do. I'm not sure. Maybe I just kept hatching new baby dinosaurs every time I played. I don't know. If you play the little TV in the game, it plays this weird clattering theme song that sounds like a really odd Primus TV show opening or something. According to the game credits, it's actually from Svengoolie, which was a horror and sci-fi themed variety show from the 70s that I've never seen, but I have heard of its legendary status with its fans. There's also a little toy truck that is as close to copyright infringement on Jurassic Park as it could possibly be. And everything you play with is summoned from this weird little crystal thing in the top right corner that I think is supposed to be your own parental soul guiding the infant dinosaur. By far the most involved aspect of the game is the coloring book minigame it has, where you get the little T-Rex to dip his tail into different paints and then splatter the canvas with them. And he can also jump up and stomp on the ground to lower a new plate, which is adorable and easily the most creative interaction with a video game T-Rex that I could think of. It probably does more to feel like you're really doing something with this lizard child than just surrounding it with toys does. I do remember this being a pain in the ass, though. I remember it being like very particular about where you click and kind of having to click a bunch of times to get the dinosaur to do things. Your T-Rex hatches from an egg in a field, and it lives in a nearby cave, which you can use to lead to a variety of different locations which feel like something out of the land before time. Actually, one of them in particular really reminds me of Dinosaur National Monument, which is a cool place I've been to on the border of Utah and Colorado, where a whole bunch of fossils were found in the early 1900s. I never would have drawn that comparison as a kid, I hadn't traveled through that area until I was an adult, but the comparison immediately made the background stick in my head in a way that it didn't from my childhood. I didn't remember nothing about this game till I looked at it again, except for the steak and the beach ball and the radio assets. That's all I remembered. I remembered the T-Rex looking way more cartoony in my imagination. There's not a ton to do in this game. You can make your T-Rex burp and roar. You can raise its stats. You can walk it around the environments, hilariously slap it with a rolled up newspaper whenever you want it to stop doing something, but that's about it. So, let's touch on the feelings that I have about remembering my interest in this game from that period of my childhood when I played it. My lifestyle has always been unfortunately informed by my confusion over my place in a heavily gendered society, and defined by obsessive interests that I considered as the grounding rods of my personality during various periods of time. When I was in the second grade, as a result of Jurassic Park and the Lost World movies, I had a major obsession with dinosaurs, which included collecting toys from the movies at my dad's wallet's behest, and learning random facts about my favorite dinosaurs from a big encyclopedia that I had about them, mostly learning their heights so that I could measure them out on a tape measure and imagine seeing a monster of such size. I had moved on from dinosaurs into being a fan of Godzilla and then a fan of Pokemon in the couple of years that I took up my parents' home computer, since neither of them figured out what to do with it, and I just started going to the Pokemon website and playing games like Rex. Around that period of time is when my love for cute things and my desire to be seen as a boy, in spite of looking and acting very effeminate, began to clash. I was in awe of dinosaurs, but my favorites had been the small ones like the raptors and the baby T-Rexes from the Lost World, or even the baby Godzillas from the end of the 1997 American film, which most people hated, but I loved as a little kid. I had come to dinosaurs right off the back of being into stuff like Winnie the Pooh, and I was heading towards being into video games like Diddy Kong Racing and Pokemon, so there was still a heavy appreciation of cute little stuffed animal characters in my heart, while I was also happy to have what was considered a boy hobby at the time in the form of dinosaur and vehicle toys. When I was getting towards age 9 or 10, I remember being fascinated by the concept of child rearing in general. Maybe because my own baby brother was becoming a toddler around then and starting to develop a personality, or maybe because my brother, who's only a year and a half my junior, had also been so affected by spending his time around me already up to that point. Whatever the case, I was always attracted to these commercials for toys of lifelike baby dolls or anything meant to simulate the experience of parenthood, except for the fact that those toys were unfailingly marketed towards little girls. If Pokemon hadn't been grounded by having a brash little boy protagonist in the anime, I probably wouldn't have considered it accessible to me as somebody who saw myself as a boy in the way that I did. But because of stuff like that, I was able to be a fan of the likes of Digimon. I owned a Pokemon Pikachu. I even bought games like Hey You Pikachu on the N64 later, which is a cozy game about talking to a Pikachu and watching TV. Aside from everything Pokemon themed, the closest thing that I remember getting to actually playing with a baby doll and pretending to be a parent would be spending my time playing Rex, and another game I'll mention in a moment. As soon as I got past that age, I got so insecure about recognizing my own predilection for feminine hobbies that I just locked those interests
deep in my soul and never engaged with them again until later in life when I started having regrets about that lack of honesty to myself from the past. But that's a sad thought, and this is a cute little video about a game nobody remembers, so let's pick it back up. I've seen other similar games like 3D Pets Dino, which came later and are probably remembered by many more people. And just as well, there's been plenty of other games about raising dinosaurs since this one, plenty of games about building a Jurassic Park, having other interactions with dinosaurs, cozy or otherwise. I think this game is mostly interesting as a snapshot just of what cheap little small team games from the mid-90s on PC looked like in general, more so than being an interesting game, considering that anybody who was using their PC for games like this at that time probably can think of something they could compare it to. Like the only other game in the genre, which I found myself dumping hours into around that time, Captain Crunch's Crunchling Adventure. Actually, a more advanced and less cozy game than Rex, but certainly a better documented one. My channel is tiny and hungry like the baby T-Rex, so it's up to you to figure out how you're gonna help me raise it to adulthood. Leave a comment, let me know what games you want to see me talk about, and support the channel by subscribing to my Substack, where the text versions of these videos are always published. Share my show with anyone you think will like it, and I will shout out practically anyone who interacts with my channel in the videos themselves. Thanks again for watching, queers. Keep cozy and cuddle on.